the torn jacket reel. This is in the key of D major, and it goes really nicely with the musical priest. So watch out for some play-along tracks with the musical priest in B minor into the torn jacket in D. A good pairing going from B minor to D, it's the relative major of B minor. So when you're putting session sets together, this is a good trick to go from the relative minor to the major, B minor to D, E minor to G, and so on. This is a pretty straightforward tune. There is a run up to a high B in the second part, and unlike the musical priest, this one is easy, and we're going to get it through one of the positional switches that we've been talking about lately. So here is the simple tune for the torn jacket reel. So there's nothing massively complicated there. Watching for that switch in the second part, there is a slide up and a slide down. So just that phrase goes like this, as I make sure I have the notes right. So we're switching from fret 2 to fret 3 using our index finger, going from F sharp to G. And then switching back down. It is, of course, possible to do it with normal fingering. Just for me, from the way my left hand works and my pinky works, a positional switch is easier. So here's that, just with a little bit of pace to it so you can see it happening. So it's just a switcheroo. Easy, nice and simple. Okay, here's the tune with a bit more pace to it. Before we finish up talking about the left hand, I've talked about this before, it's always worth remembering and reiterating, keeping your fingers on the strings for as long as possible, and there are some good examples and opportunities here in this tune. And let's just talk through a few of them as they pop up in the tune. Right off the bat, in the first bar, keep on the F sharp, so fret 4 on the D string and fret 5 on the A string, which is the high D. Right through that first bar. Now you're going to have to lift off because the next note is a C sharp, but that gives a lovely chord that blends right through that first part. And that happens multiple times in the first part. Happens again at the start of the second part. Alright, when you hit that high A, fret 5 on the E string, that's when you can lift everything off. But I would be inclined to keep all of those 3 notes down until you go for the high A. Alright, so in this bar, which is bar 3, just consulted my notes so I get it right. Bar 3 of the second part, when we play a high D again, fret 5 on the A string, that does 2 things. It gives us this bridge to work on, the support, as we come up onto the E string, but it also provides the blended note which carries through. There are subtle differences, but they make a big difference. Let's go ahead and add single note triplets. We're just going to do the right hand picked triplets. As always, down, up, down, followed by a down, because we're in real playing. That's a pattern that won't set you wrong, and you can vary off it in the odd occasion that it might make more sense to do it in a different way. I don't think I've ever done a triplet on an up, down, up, unless I'm doing 2 in a row, but that then becomes tremolo picking, which is down, up, down, up, down, up. But to start a single triplet on its own, I always play it down, up, down, and generally the note after it is a down, but that's a good rule to have in place as a starting point. Follow-on thought about triplets. And this pops up all of the time in conversations with musicians, with banjo players, about making sure that the triplet isn't crushed really small. Okay, so a triplet is 3 notes in the space of 2. Right? 3 in the space of 2. So give each note of the triplet its own value so that it fills the same space in the bar and that it's not crushed down really small. The point I'm trying to make is don't jerk at your triplets and do them like. Space them out, give them loads of time. then when you speed up the tune, the triplet naturally speeds up because the tempo of the tune is sped up. But remember that they are still 3 notes in the space of 2. Now it's just faster. So that can remove some of the illusion around doing triplets, that it's this really, really fast thing that we have to jerk at and play very hard. No, 3 notes in the space of 2. Space them out when you're playing slow. That's a really good way to practice them. Nice and gentle. All right, here's another round of the torn jacket reel with some more ornamentation, a little bit of flair and style thrown into this one. Let's throw a little bit more speed and more chords and double stops into this one. Let's do one round of the tune where we leave out a lot of the complicated ornamentation, and this time we're going for some swing, flow, and a little bit of subtlety. we might as well have one round where we put in a little bit of everything. I'm also going to do this last round, which is a lot of rounds at this stage, with an awful lot of the ornamentation, but I'm going to slow it way down so that you can see that putting in all of the complicated stuff can be done at slower speeds. It also might break down the woo-woo around where everything goes, so that at least you can see it and hear that you can play it complicated, but not at great speed. A very quick note on playing in sessions. And I know that this is something that us experienced musicians take for granted, and that for somebody walking into a session, maybe for the first time or as a beginner, might be very nervous about adding to any more than just simply playing along with the tune. Follow me, I'm going to make sense. Something that happens very organically and is part of why Irish sessions are so fun and interesting is that the tune changes dynamic as it's played multiple times. And the musicians that know the tunes inside out, they know when to rise it up and when to make it a little bit smaller, creating, as I said, the dynamic differences as the tune progresses a few times. This is a great example of a really brilliant session tune, particularly because of the layout of the first part, which is it has this kind of glorious return when we get back to the first part. And so one of the things that you can do, sometimes we need to manufacture moments, learn them, practice them, and then play them in a session. We've all done this. We just did it. I just did it, almost 40 years ago, and I've been doing it for a very, very long time. But I did pick things up from playing, and then I copied, and that's how I learned to style, was by taken loads of influences from a ton of other musicians and then combining them into my music. So one of the things coming out of the second part, right? There's a classic phrase. So we're leaving out a lot of the notes of that first bar. Bar or two. And instead we're pulsing out 3 of the chords. This is the best approximation that we can do on a banjo of a fiddle doing a long bow to note da 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 da, or an accordion which gets to do that, and even sometimes use the bass hand as well to accentuate coming back to the first part of a tune. And it's those moments that make Irish music and Irish sessions so fun and so interesting to both play and listen to. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson for the Torn Jacket.